A King and a Court of Fools by H. Ryan. Written by Larry Enright and read by Larry Enright. Copyright 2011, all rights reserved. AJ. We would have been happy to play in the stream at our new place in the woods and talk about the construction details of our clubhouse for the rest of the day, but Tom had other ideas. So we walked back to the cherry tree, and after checking under our secret message rock and finding no reply, we began the hike south to the Finnertys. At the foxhole, we stopped to make sure the others weren't there playing, and continued past the stand of trees into the tall grass field. Just west of the trail along Dirty Creek was a thicket of blackberry bushes covered by a fluttering black and orange cloud of monarch butterflies, taking advantage of the last of the season's harvest. They would be heading south for the winter to Mexico soon, where there would be warmth and enough food for all, but for now they were putting on a special show just for us. Tom waved us onward, and we jumped the creek coming up to the jagger bushes, where the pink lady had been. The unfriendly thorns had already begun to close in around the hole created by the intrusive car, and in a few days there would be no trace of it. They didn't like it when anything invaded their territory. Beyond the jaggers, we crossed the field of dry brown grass, stopping to watch an army of black ants crossing the trail westward. They must have numbered in the thousands, their column a good 3 inches wide, too many for it to have been a hunting party. Most were carrying little bits of something that could have been food or sand. They were moving, whether displaced by builders digging the foundation of a new house in the neighborhood, or pushed out by another stronger group of insects that wanted their colony, or perhaps a dog that had destroyed their home, burying its bone. Whatever their story, they had lost their place too, and were searching for a new one. On any other day we might have reacted differently, but on this day, the day we had found our new place, we waited and let them pass in peace. "Why is Lucy an ant, Tommy?" I asked. "She doesn't look like one." "She's not that kind of ant, Squirt. One's a bug and the other's a relative," Sam explained. "Words that sound alike but are spelled differently are called homophones," Kate said. Tom laughed. "You're a homophone. And you're an ant's aunt, Tom, because you're my relative and you bug the heck out of me." "Oh yeah, Smarty Pants? Do you know the 3 quickest ways to get something blabbed to the world?" Kate just stared at him with a very big frown on her face. "Telephone, telegraph, and telegirl," Tom laughed. Sam almost joined in, but Kate's stare stopped him cold. "I'm rubber, you're glue. Everything bounces off me and sticks to you, Tom." "So, I guess you're smarter than me, huh?" She nodded. "Then I guess you know that your smart bounced off you and stuck to me, which makes me smarter than you, doesn't it?" Kate groaned. "You are impossible." The column of ants had thinned to a few stragglers. "Looks like your relatives are gone. Let's go," Tom said. We came to the crest of a rise beyond which lay patches of dense scrub leading down to the thicket of red and yellow maples. We all knew what was on the other side of that. The Finnertys. Sam scouted ahead, and when he gave the all-clear, we entered the deep shade of the trees, and after the path turned left, Tom stopped where it changed to slag. "You guys wait here. I'll be right back." "No, we're coming with you," Kate replied. "No, you're not. Just wait here." "Tom," Mary said, "you can't go there alone. It's too dangerous." "Way too dangerous," Sam agreed, and so began another argument. I was never much for arguing, and I didn't like listening to them argue either. Tom insisted he go alone, and they insisted on going with him. Both sides had something to prove, and neither wanted to give in. That's the way it always went. Down the path, 2 birds were chirping to each other, not arguing like my brothers and sisters, but each definitely trying to make a point. I tried getting close enough to see them, but they stopped talking and flew to other trees farther south to continue their discussion. I wandered that way and came to where the trees ended in the field of broken concrete, asphalt, and debris at the end of the Finnerty Street. The doors to their two-car garage were closed, and all was quiet at the two-story red brick house. It was a pretty little house, with flower beds in the front and neatly trimmed row of hedges on the neighbor's side of the yard. The lawn had been recently mowed, the new clippings dumped among the concrete chunks on top of older, already decomposing piles of grass. Each window of the house was shaded by a green and white striped canvas awning, the kind you had to put up in the spring and take down in late autumn to clean and store for next year. One of them had come loose from the bracket and was flapping in the soft westerly breeze. Across the street, an old man was trimming his hedges. The 4-foot-high growth ran the perimeter of his property, making his yard a nice little fort if you were a kid and wanted a place to play. A white picket gate, in need of a good scraping and a new coat of whitewash, separated the two sections of hedge where the front walk to the house met the sidewalk by the street. The front walk was made of the same dark cement slabs as the sidewalk, but an old mulberry's roots had spread underneath and it heaved upward in places. The walk ended at 3 wooden steps up to the front porch. One of them had separated from the frame and was warped upward at the railing. Gray paint that had peeled in sheets from the wooden porch, revealing a lighter, happier color underneath, lay in pieces in the unkempt beds by the foundation of the house. The screen door, unhinged at the bottom, leaned awkwardly against the front wall. The man stopped to wipe his brow with a red bandana. He spotted me watching him and smiled. I waved and walked a little closer. His thin gray and white hair was sweat-pasted flat to his head. He had a wart at the end of his nose from which grew a few dark hairs that apparently he had no intention of ever trimming. His fingers were all gnarly, his huge knuckles accentuated by a lack of excess flesh, and he was missing a finger on his left hand. His hand shook with the effort of closing and opening the hedge clippers. The blue and white checkered shirt he wore had one ripped sleeve, and the back was drenched in sweat. Except where the red suspenders held them up, his old brown pants sagged loose over his bony frame. I stood on the outside of his fort and watched him snipping little pieces of it off, brushing them onto the grass when they stuck to the hedge. He looked up at me again before going back after a thicker piece that was resisting all his efforts. "Hi," I said. "Do you want some help?" He wiped the sweat from his eyes with his arm. "I don't need help." "I know, but I'd like to." "Like to what?" "Help." The old man rested his shears on the hedge and adjusted his pants. "You're a queer little fellow. What's your name?" "Harry Ryan, sir." "Well, Harry Ryan, sir, I'm Andrew Jackson Taylor." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Taylor." "You can call me AJ." "Why?" "It's short for Andrew Jackson. What country are you from, anyway, boy?" I pointed to the trailhead. "Back there, sir." He grunted. "Well?" "Well, what, sir?" "Well, Harry Ryan, sir, from back there, why are you standing out there like a little nincompoop? Come on in if you want help." I went around to the gate, let myself in, and relatched it. The yard was dotted with yellow speckles of dandelion and a blue flowering weed I didn't know the name of. I brushed through the tall grass, popping little seeds off every which way from the lawn that hadn't been mowed in a while. Mr. Taylor retrieved a lawn chair that had toppled over and lay abandoned in the middle of the yard. He set it up by the hedge and sat down, wiping himself off again with his bandana. I picked up the shears and began to trim the hedge where he left off. It was harder than it looked, and my arms were soon aching from the effort. "You look like you could use a lemonade," he said. "This is hard, Mr. A.J." I stopped and set down the clippers. "Yes, it is. It wasn't so bad when Martha was still with me. but it's hard keeping up anymore, and I'm not getting any younger." His voice trailed off, and he wiped something from his eye that wasn't sweat. "Did she go away?" 50 years of marriage. You know it's going to happen someday, but it's still hard." A blue jay landed on the hedge, saw us, and after a loud complaint, took off again. "Don't cry, Mr. A.J. I'll get the lemonade for both of us." I patted his sweaty hand and left him sobbing in the chair. The porch steps creaked, the porch floorboards too. The old wooden door with a large window pane and glass doorknob was open a crack, so I pushed it inward and entered. In the dusty hallway lit only by a stained glass window high up in the wall, I called, "Hello?" But the only answer was the clock ticking in the living room. Wooden steps with a frayed red runner led to the second floor. When I touched the banister, my hand came off, covered in dust. A faucet was dripping upstairs. I walked back toward the back of the house, calling out repeatedly for anyone, but the house was empty. I found the kitchen, a faded yellow room that smelled faintly of garbage. There was a pitcher of lemonade in the refrigerator and a single clean jelly glass in the drain board. I couldn't reach the cabinet above the sink to see if there was another, so I searched the pantry closet. It had very little in it. A box of Quaker Oats, Aunt Jemima pancake mix, several hand towels, a toolbox, and a few other odds and ends. I poured the lemonade and took the glassful back to Mr. Taylor. He told me to take the first drink, then he would have the rest. "You wouldn't want my cooties now, would you?" he said with a wrinkly smile. I took my drink and sat on the grass beside Mr. Taylor. Between sips of lemonade, he told me about himself and Martha, his wife of 50 years, who had died last year, and his daughter Maggie, who was married with a family of her own and living somewhere in New Jersey, 8 hours away by car. A.J., as he kept telling me to call him, was 78 years old. He had fought in World War I. He was an infantry sharpshooter. That's how he had lost his left pinky. It was shot off by a German soldier in a fight he called the Battle of Blue Wood. He still carried a photo of his squad in his wallet, and showed it to me, and told me who each man in the picture was. He remembered all their names. 5 of them never came home from the war. 2 others died of old age. A.J. was the only one left. He had met Martha before the war, when he was working for Carnegie Steel as a metal pourer. He'd had an accident with the hot metal one day, and Martha was one of the nurses at the hospital where they had taken him. She was a pretty little thing, he said, and he told her that she did such a good job taking care of him that he wanted to take care of her for the rest of her life. They were married that same year. That was 1905. Martha was a wonderful woman, and A.J. had made good on his promise to take care of her for the rest of her life. He had just never expected it to end this way. "What about Maggie?" I asked. "She's a good girl, Harry, but she's got her own family to take care of. She's been pushing for me to go into the VA home, but I've seen that place, and this old soldier wouldn't last a week there." Mr. Taylor was looking past me toward the woods. He set the empty jelly glass down in the grass and stood up, folding his arms across his chest. I stood up too. Looking over the hedge wall, I spotted Tom sneaking from one chunk of concrete to another. It was still quiet over at the Finnertys. I waved to him, and he saw me. "Friend of yours?" Mr. Taylor asked. "He's my brother Tom, and that's Mary, Kate, and Sam hiding in the trees." I went and opened the gate, waving for them to come. Tom motioned to the others to follow, and they ran to the hedge and through the gate into Mr. Taylor's yard. "What's the matter with you, Harry?" Tom shouted. "We scoured the whole woods looking for you. We ran all the way back to the house. Where were you?" Mary hugged me. Kate started crying. "We were so worried about you." "I've been here with Mr. Taylor. I'm sorry. I don't like it when you argue." Mr. Taylor cleared his throat and extended his hand to Tom. "Andrew Jackson Taylor. You can call me A.J. And you must be Tom Ryan." Tom shook his hand. Yes, sir, and this is Mary, Kate, and Sam. Thank you for watching out for my dumb brother. How do you do, sir? I'd be better if you called me AJ. I liked that little maneuver there. It reminded me of the Battle of Belleau Wood. Tom's eyes widened. Belleau Wood? You were in World War I? 2nd Division, 9th Infantry Regiment, Mr. Taylor said. No, sir, that was my granddad's regiment. Ryan, huh? I don't remember any Ryans, but it was a big outfit. The guys came and went all the time. Well, if you didn't know, he won that battle single-handed. Tom and Granddad were close. Whenever we visited Grandma and Granddad Ryan, he would take us to the park. While we played, he and Tom would go to the corner bar, and over a pint of bitters, Granddad would tell him stories of his exploits during the war. He was Tom's hero. Is that so? Mr. Taylor showed Tom his badge of honor. That's how I lost this. Holy moly, would you look at that? Sam, did you see this? Sam took the old man's hand and examined it. Whoa, it's clean gone. Mr. Taylor looked a little wobbly. He sat down in the lawn chair and mopped his brow with his bandana. Shot right off. I didn't know I'd lost it, the fighting was so fierce. We gathered round Mr. Taylor, sitting cross-legged in the grass, with our elbows on our knees, like little stone statues in a garden, listening to him tell the amazing story of his part in the Battle of Belleau Wood. He recounted the details from the time his squad set up along the road in the quiet countryside to the thunderous attack by wave after wave of German soldiers. As the battle wore on, the old man grew younger in his memories of it. His tired eyes came to life and danced with excitement as his bony old fingers animated the tale of soldiers and bravery in the face of a powerful, determined enemy. We were spellbound, and that afternoon we gained another hero and friend in AJ.